Hello everybody, I'm Paula Tiso, and welcome to my take of VoiceOver Studio Travelogue. Today I'm on my way to go visit with Nan McNamara, who stars on screen, on stage, and in the VoiceOver booth. She's got a lot to tell us about, and I can't wait to hear all about it and share it with you. So let's go.
Hi.
Hello, this is exciting.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here. We're rolling.
We're rolling.
So, did you look at your questions?
I looked at my questions.
Some people don't, some people do.
I looked at them, but I didn't really think about what actually to say, because I think it's better to just, I didn't plan anything out, is what I'm saying. It was like, okay, let me think about that for a minute. Oh, okay. It's just better, I think, it's better to improvise it, I think.
Yes, be fresh.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I ask you a question, it's best to paraphrase my question back at me, because
Great.
I'm not going to be in the minute snippets that go on Instagram.
Great, okay.
So this kind of gives the people a context.
Cool.
So your first question we'll start with, starts with a statement. But you are an award-winning actress. Tell us a bit about your winning roles. What do you love about performing on stage? Picture that.
Well, what I love about performing on stage is, there's so much. There's so much. It's all about the story. It's all about the play, whatever it is that's come my way. The two shows that you are referencing in terms of being award-winning were Wit by Margaret Edson and a play by Moises Kaufman called 33 Variations. And those two plays had some similar themes in that the lead character that I played was struggling with a health issue as well as struggling with, it's all life and death stuff. It's all, am I making a mark in my life, and what is that mark? And is it something that I can be proud of or not? And in Wit, Vivian Baring that I played was in stage 4 of ovarian cancer, and the character that I played in 33 Variations, Dr. Brandt, had ALS and was dying from ALS. So those two stories, they just blew me away on the page, and then scared the heck out of me when I started working on it, and then gave me really just, it moves me even just thinking about them, because the way that those stories can affect audiences is, I think, why we all became actors. Is we wanted to, aside from when you're young and you just want to perform in front of people, but as you become a professional actor and you realize the impact that a wonderful story can have on an audience, it's just, there's no feeling like it when you can see and hear people's response and know that they've been moved by the story. So that's what I love about doing the theater, and why I will always, no matter what, come back to that, and hopefully always be working in that field. My acting work on stage and on screen, it informs the voiceover. It's all really the same thing. It's really just a shorter, voiceover is a shorter version, 60 seconds, 30 seconds. Sometimes we were mentioning narration, sometimes it's longer than that. But it's all the same. You're using the same tools. It's just, certainly on camera, certainly on stage, and sometimes on camera, you have a lot more time to prepare. You're rehearsing on stage, you're rehearsing for sometimes weeks. TV and film, you'll get maybe a week with the material yourself. So there's that advantage. The way that they inform each other is, you've got to be able to take that piece of copy and have all that craft and all that technique and all the things that you've come to know in terms of acting, and you've got to be able to do it with no preparation. So, because you never get the copy ahead of time. You walk into an audition and you maybe get a few minutes with it. Now that we record auditions a lot at home, you'll have overnight, which is nice, especially if you have animation. But you have to have, I think, those other things helping inform the voiceover so that you really are bringing it to life. You're bringing your own perspective. It might not have a character attached to it, but it has to be talking to somebody specific. Yeah, there's a lot that they all kind of come together, I think.
Let's talk about audiobooks.
Oh yeah, audiobooks.
Specifically, and you can go in any way that you want, but I was interested about the award you got, Best Audiobook.
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, there were a few of them. I wasn't the only one. I think they listed 5. But it's a book about, well, it's hard to say what it's about, but it's by Francine Prose, who's a beautiful writer. What a perfect name for a writer, Francine Prose, called Mr. Monkey. And it alternated between a female perspective and a male perspective. So I did it with a narrator by the name of Kirby Hayborn, who's an award-winning, wonderful narrator. But we don't get to do it together. He's across the country. I did it in my home studio. He did it in his home studio. And then, through the magic of technology, they put our worlds together. So audiobooks require a lot more preparation, certainly in this voiceover world in terms of the different genres that there are. You get the book, if it's fiction, there's a lot of preparation. You read the whole book ahead of time. I do, anyway. I look at all the characters. Sometimes I'll make notes on the page. I use one of those apps, Goodreader, to take the PDF and mark it up. Not with like color coding or anything like that, but just if the description of how the person is feeling is after the statement, which is often how it is in fiction. She said, sadly, or whatever. I might circle that. But reading through, I'll just make notes of the characters and their intentions and kind of their, using an actor term, like their through line, their super objective, so that I can kind of map out vocally where I want it to go. So it's an interesting thing. I always say it's great to get to play all the characters, to get to be men, to get to be old men, young men, older women, younger women, silly characters. So that part of it is really a lot of fun. It's very challenging because it's long form. So, and a lot of times you're also engineering yourself. So you've got a lot of hats, but when you get, it's always about the writing for me, all this stuff is, when you get a great book, I'll be in there and I'll have to just stop recording because I'll be crying, or you can't have the snotting up on the microphone. That doesn't. It doesn't. People don't want to hear that, and you have to really be talking still to one person because people are listening, with earbuds normally. Sometimes they listen in the car, but you really have to key into. You can't zone out. You got to key into telling this story in this really intimate way to one person. And the style that I like to do in terms of dialogue, I don't like to make big, my male voices are down here and my female voices are, I try to just really look at intention and really look at what's happening here and how is it vocally changing, so that it's not like doing 8 hours of animation where you have, completely different voices. Although sometimes that'll happen when I'll get to do accents, because that's another part that can happen, that can come into play in the story. And then fiction, which I do a lot, nonfiction, I do a lot of nonfiction books, and those also require a lot of preparation in terms of, sometimes there'll be terms that you have no idea how to pronounce it, what it means. I did a book that was a memoir that involved the Middle East and a reporter reporting on the persecution of Christians in the Middle East. And as you can imagine, I think I had 30 pages of words, people, and they're known people. They're not, so you have to get the pronunciation right. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into audiobooks, and then there's the actual recording, obviously. And usually, hopefully you can do, for every hour of recorded material, it can take anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours if you're good at it. It can also take you, if you've got a really challenging book, it could probably take even longer. So it's one of those areas that it's a very specific thing. You've got to be able to have that longevity of sitting in a room for 8 hours recording. And if I can just add another element on top of it, you have to be really careful about your voice in terms of what you've eaten the night before. And we do this in voiceover as well, but if you're recording a 60-second voiceover spot, you're not going to worry about having a glass of wine the night before. I mean, maybe you do, but I don't. I think, hey, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to drink a lot of water, and I'm going to get there, and they're going to have an apple for me to help with any mouth noise. But when you're doing 8 hours of an audiobook, you have to be careful what you eat. During the day, you have to be careful what you have for lunch. No dairy, no cheese, no. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it's like training.
It's like training. You're in training. And to a certain extent, when I do theater, because you've got to be talking for hours on end too, you have to do that. But yeah, I hate to give up my wine. That's just awful. Oh, book titles. Let me think about that. There's an author by the name of Michelle Grief, and she writes these lovely period, I would call them Dickens-esque romance novels. But they're not romance in an uncomfortable way, because they're set in the time of Dickens. So there's these wonderful characters where you don't know that they're going to get together, and they're the one that I recently did is A Tale of Two Hearts, and it's a young girl who works for her father in this hotel and meets this upper class man, and it's a lot about what's the right word, the system of hierarchy back then, and how that all plays into the story. And there's usually delicious villains like you think of in Dickens, and getting to do all the accents, because they're the lower class, Cockney type people, and then there's the upper, very proper British characters. But what I love about it the most is that they're just these wonderful stories where at the end they end up getting together. And I believe she's a Christian writer, and so she infuses the stories with a bit of faith that's not overt, not pushy, but it's they're rather faith-based. So all of that together, I just love these books. They're really wonderful. In terms of voiceover, the area that I really thought about this question. The area that I love the most in voiceover is something that we don't get to do very much anymore. I love doing those radio commercials we used to get to do where there were characters and you were sort of like a little play. It's like a little 60-second play. And I was thinking specifically of a couple of spots. I got to do one with Lindsay, with my husband actually. I think it was the first time we had ever worked together. But we were already married. And, I was playing some soap opera star. And he was, it was for, I think it was for KCAL or, one of the networks. And they did this really fun campaign where we just got to be so broad and so extreme. And one with Steve Morris. Do you know Steve? Yeah. Steve. And I played a bride who was leaving her husband because I wanted to, eat something. I forget what the product even was, but they were like little mini plays, and you got to be really, extreme in your characterization. So, but we don't do radio commercials that much anymore. I mean, there are certainly radio commercials, but they don't seem to, the number of them has sort of dwindled. But I also love, and it's where I work the most, is just in the commercial, television commercial arena. I think of Fancy Feast. I did a campaign where they used Etta James' song At Last, which I just love. And it was just this it's all about cats. And, you know, it's all about the Fancy Feast, it's about the food. But you can really, there are some commercials that are written in such a way that the mood and the story, it's just so specific and it's so much fun. And the countless ways you do more for your dog, like choosing a food with nutritional extras like protein from real meat and antioxidant-rich ingredients. They all add up to make his not just a good life, but a beautiful one. Purina Pro Plan, the more you give. Tell us how you do more at ProPlan.com. Well, that was a cold read. You might know my voice if you are a boy between the ages of 18 and 24 and you love video games. I am Anya, or I was Anya. Anya is no more. Anya passed away in Gears of War.
So this is how it ends. Today, the coalition of ordered governments ceased to exist. Chairman Prescott, he abandoned us some time ago.
I got to work with some amazing people on that, and a gentleman by the name of Rod Ferguson, who continues to advance that. They've got another series now with Gears, but yeah, my nephew, when he was younger, he was so thrilled that I was Anya, and I got a lot of paraphernalia and I have one of the big Lancer guns, and I have a lot of stuff that I got to share with him and autograph and give to him. So yeah, so it's always fun when your family can actually connect with what you're doing, because a lot of times, you know, they don't live here, and so they sort of wonder, what do you do all day? Like, what? I can't recognize your voice. You know, if I see you on TV, great, but even that's harder now because not everybody gets every cable channel that is out. So yeah, so my nephew was very thrilled that I was Anya. And that's a great series. The one right now, I have something running called Great Call, which is one of those devices for elderly people that if they're falling, they can press the button. And so I play the daughter on that. I'm the voice of, when my mom fell, I was really, you know, that's running now, I guess. So on the subject of longevity in this business, I think about that all the time. So it's a great question. And I think the thing that I would say about longevity is it's all about your mentality. I think if you don't have good mentality, this business, this industry, whether you're doing voiceover or on camera or theater, I think it can be a really tough place to try and keep going. I think you have, and when I say mentality, I mean, I think you really have to be in a good place, and I think you have to work at that every day to wake up, because we're basically self-employed. We wake up every day looking for work. Some days we wake up with a job, which is great, but you have to really have that ability to go, okay, nothing on the horizon today, how can I make it happen? And I think those are the people that last. I like to compare everything that we do in acting to athletics, to football players, to tennis players, and you can have the best stroke in the game. But if when you get out on the field or if you get out on the court, you don't have good mentality, you're not going to win the game. And I think the same is true as an actor. I think you can be an amazing actor, but if you can't pull it together to either keep a positive attitude, have faith, and once you get the job, be able to produce, be able to do it under a lot of pressure, I think that's where I think that's where longevity comes into it. And I'm a person of faith, and so for me that's also a really important aspect to my staying in the business as long as I have. I rely on the Lord so much, just to have faith that He's going to provide and He's going to bring us work, and so that's another big part of it. I think you also, and we were talking about this before you started filming, that you have to really be a shapeshifter too with the different ways that the business changes. You have to kind of reinvent yourself as we get older, as our voices shift, the business shifts, how marketing has shifted. We have to be aware of all of that. So that's really important too. I think remaining, keeping yourself really up to date on all of that stuff, and continuing to be curious, because if we're not curious, then I think we're dead in the water. I think you have to continue to really, because it's all going to help you. It's all, every story that you get, if you've been curious about other things, it's just going to keep feeding into what you're doing and making your work really specific and really interesting. So, I continue to take class. What you're doing is helping people continue to deepen and learn, and you just have to keep all of those things happening. And then one final thing I would say, for me, I have to have a lot of balls up in the air. I think voiceover has expanded into many different formats, so there's not just commercial and promo, there's all kinds of different elements. We talked about audiobooks, but I kind of, at this point in my career, I'm trying to keep a lot of balls up in the air, and doing on camera, and doing theater, and in doing all different aspects of voiceover, even ADR work. So that makes it fun, and it also helps you to keep that longevity as well.